Namaskar. Namaskar, Urvashi ji. Welcome to Shaivite Org's Anniversary Week. And this is talk number 5. And welcome to all the guests and people who are going to be watching this offline. Let me introduce the speaker and then I'll hand over the mic to her. We have Urvashi ji here, who is an architect, design academic, and a researcher whose research focuses are on exploring place-based history and its cultural underpinnings, particularly through the lenses of memory and material. With a deep commitment to understanding the impact of forced displacement, her ongoing PhD research centers on individuals who were children during the 1990 exodus of Kashmiri Pandits, now living in exile. Drawing from personal history and experiences, the research explores the multifaceted layers of culture, stories, traditions, time, space, and architecture, aiming to unravel the fluid yet definite identities that are shaped by displacement and the notions around what is home. With that, I welcome you again, Urvashi ji. Thank you for joining us today, and the mic is all yours. Take it away.
Thank you so much, Rishik ji. First of all, I want to congratulate you for setting this all up. It's not a small task. It's huge, bringing everybody together and through this platform. And I mean, it's very humbling that you asked me to, share my own journey here. Thank you so much. Thanks. My journey, so to speak, is a journey of many facets, many aspects, as everyone else's. We all have our personal journeys. We all have our collective journeys as well. To speak of journey within or through space, place, and memory, my background is in architecture, so I kind of understand the language of spaces. So that's been a biggest, you can say, an enabler for me to understand or even touch upon various aspects or assets of placemaking or what makes place or an image, so to speak. Coming back to the beginnings. We all have our memories, especially of Kashmir, that keeps us connected in so many myriad ways. So, as I said, I'm an architect who tries to understand the language of spaces as dimensions, both physical and otherwise. Rather, otherwise is still work in progress, or rather continuum, so to speak. A little bit, again, rewinding, me and my sister took a journey tracing our roots to our home in Kashmir. And that was made into a documentary some years back. It's Ghar Ka Pata. This documentary touches upon the notion of home and loss at the backdrop of our collective exodus through a personal journey, of course. So, kya hota hai when you're small, one absorbs what is around you, right? My memories of Kashmir, like many of us here would also have, is the shimmering moonlight on Dal Lake or on Vitasta river passing by, or the golden chinar, the seasons, the pradakshina we used to take in Tulmul during the night hours, the glimmering lamps of symbolic omkar or just lamps around that space around the spring. ये सब आपको उस एज में समझ नहीं आप, I mean, you're not able to comprehend or make sense of what are these imageries or what is around you. But you're so impressionable at that age and your conscience collects it and keeps it. जिसको फिर आप memory repository भी कह सकते हो. So this was childhood of many of us rather here, which is more of Kashmir as a place it was or it is still, जो कि तत्वों से बनी है, right? I mean, and I think the resonance of that place has a very different dimension. I felt it. I'm sure many of us have felt it as well. Then, as um, childhood passed by and on, Exodus happened. And the rest is history. We know of that. However, there remain many unresolved knots which make their appearance once in a while in our life. They are subdued because other aspects about life take center stage. लेकिन वो कहीं जाते नहीं हैं. They're there. They're watching you. They're ready to knock again. And when you're ready to confront them, or you're in a position to make sense of them, because they are so powerful lived experiences, otherwise they wouldn't remain so vivid. Um, Well, all this was happening. It's in your mind. All the places in your mind, the exodus is in your mind, the loss is in your mind. I knew I was in this web of what is tangible, right? Because physicality takes much more precedence, because you haven't yet touched the metaphysical or the intangible, so to speak. And this was unraveled to me till I had till this wasn't unraveled to me till I had an encounter with the intangible or the immaterial. Um, Yet again, but this time, because time had passed on, I understood his language, the language of intangibility or the language of immaterial. It surfaced at a time when I was at a tender time, perhaps ready to make sense of it all, I guess. So during the making of Ghar Ka Pata, um, when I went to Kashmir during the making of this film, I started threading my childhood experiences of what didn't make sense to me then. But I had a lens now, the lens of spatial language that goes beyond the visible dimensions. I was standing near the backyard of my ancestral home in Ranawari, which had a mer. Mer is a canal running parallelly. When I stood there, this was after 26 years of we leaving Kashmir. When I stood there, there was a gush of wind. The poplars, जिनको हम फ्रस बोलते हैं, they started making rustling sound, and that was the moment I realized and felt a deep reverence to this land of ours, to this land of many, many, many realities, which is Kashmir to us. At that moment, I felt I'm home. वो जो एहसास था ना, that feeling, एहसास को आप जब feeling बोलते हो तो it loses a little essence, but एहसास कह सकते हैं, and let's keep it there. It was so powerful, yet so gentle. And that was the moment I realized that I needed to understand this land and its multifaceted dimensions a little better. I, I, I realized that I touched something, but that something was still very gray. It still is. It's still a journey in the process. Where I understood this moment was where I understood something profound. I understood the language of multi-dimensional. We do talk about dimensions in so many ways, but जो multi-dimensional होती हैं चीजें, और the other dimension जिसको आप देख नहीं पाते हो, जिसको आप एहसास कर सकते हो, you can just feel it. It's there, but it's not there, right? What do I mean by that? Was also something which I wanted to understand better. So I tried to take a position at that time of somebody who doesn't know anything. I didn't know anything. I just knew that my place has a lot to offer जिसका मुझे बिल्कुल शायद एहसास है लेकिन समझ नहीं है, right? I tried looking everywhere, seeking answers. Rather than that, even articulating my own thoughts. What is it that I'm even trying to seek? Because I'm from the architecture background, I kind of understand spaces. Um, it has many dimensions, and we do talk about um, in architecture we talk about the language of space, which you can only feel or feel or not even see, just understand. That's in layman's terms, we can say that it's a response which a person gives when entering a space, right? We all give a response to a certain space when we are into it, right? But आप उसको समझ तभी पाते हो जब आपको उसकी थोड़ी सी समझ हो, है ना? So I tried looking for these, try to see what is in the scholarly areas में क्या है इसके बारे में, कुछ है क्या? I came upon various scholarships, like some of them phenomenal in their own ways. The works of Gaston Bachelard in Poetics of Space. He talks about so many facets of space that we don't. It's very difficult to comprehend. Yet it was still something which was not fitting my template, you can say. Um, uh, because we are also trying to see what displacement is or what exile is, and then what is our place, what is place attachment, what is this theory. I also came upon Mohammed Darwish's works. Some of his works are very inspirational, and they give meaning to I what my research is also about. He has his work in presence of an absence is something which is very profound and talks a lot to me with respect to place attachment theories. The understanding of presence of an absence in itself speaks so much, right? Which is in you is, I mean, you are flushed with the memories of your home, your place, for us it's Kashmir, and uski presence जो है आपके जहन में है बस, और उसकी absence का क्या एहसास है? So the presence of an absence in itself is so phenomenal. Another of his works that influenced me is Lament for a Lost Land. In that, there's a passage which speaks volumes in the way मेरे बचपन में मैंने शायद अपनी जगह को महसूस किया हो. And when you go and you know, when the return, when I was returning, it unraveled to me in ways that I couldn't, again, at that moment, it was a different kind of non-comprehension. So in Lament for a Lost Land, he says a place is not only a geographical area, it's also a state of mind. And trees are not just trees. They are the ribs of childhood. The tears flowed freely from my fingers as the bus passed quickly by. Upon our return, the sadness of my childhood came back. This dream standing before me. Why didn't I just wrap it around myself? Even once, so I could say I have felt the joy that kills. The soldiers were guarding the dream, but I will enter. I'll enter it when they are asleep. All these are very provocative, very evocative dimensions, very evocative perspectives. Yet, मेरे लिए कुछ amiss था. Something was not fitting. I understood it all, and it filled with me with so much, what do you say, so much promise that there is still space for comprehension. There is still space for making sense of a lived experience of childhood, and then जब आप बड़े हो जाते हो उसके काफी सारे the grains start changing, right? There are, because layer of time adds to it, layer of space gets added to it. It changes its form, but core still remains the same, right? And उसको आप place attachment कह सकते हो. So I was trying to seek more. I was trying to seek more because I was not I was not getting the the fluidity of the dimension which I was trying to seek. Um, so to say that the rustle of trees, the rustle of leaves, the sound what water makes, the light on the lake. ये सब क्या था? What was all that about? It still is stuck in your mind, right? And all these scholarly works were not somehow trying helping me with this understanding. So वहाँ पे I try to seek within. So I wanted to look at if there is anything which Kashmir itself has to offer. And I came upon Kashmir Shaivism with deep humility. I don't know much about it. I won't even say scratch the surface. I can say that I've only been able to reach probably where the surface is. But it tapasya hai. I mean, you need a very different set of, I don't know. I mean, it's a lot which I'm trying to just make sense of. Just Kashmir Shaivism is so profound, and it's not um, it's not easy, right? It's a difficult terrain, but I wanted to still encounter it because it also gave me another insight. It was that this is what my core is about. Aapki identity hai na. When I was trying to understand my experiences, I'm actually trying to understand what shapes my identity. What is the core meaning of my identity, and वो सब किस चीज से बन जाता है, वो किससे बनता है, and that is all these cultural tenets which actually make the core of you who you are. They shape you in so many ways. Why does the rustle of wind get stuck with me? Why does the light get stuck with me? What is the dimension? What am I trying to see? Is so much. And I think our journey, my own journey rather, I can say that is, it started looking inwards to be able to understand what was outwards. And Kashmir philosophy, or the Shaivism philosophy, tried to help me a little bit, because that was the understanding of invisible dimensions, or realms that cannot be captured but only felt, and yet they are there. And to understand that, the philosophy of Shaivism gleams. And how fortunate are we to be the um, be born in this land जिसको आप कश्मीर कहते हो, है ना? So my journey has many parallels, and understanding place and memory through this lens was something I wanted to pursue then. I wanted to understand home and place through our own cultural and philosophical tenets. So Kashmir Shaivism offered here a spiritual understanding of journey as an inward exploration where one's inner landscape reflects and is reflected by external space. So I was trying to understand both. I'm still trying to understand. I may not have answers at this point of time, but as I said, I wanted to make sure that I start from the position of a blank slate. because then only can I actually embrace what is around me. Um, so, central to Kashmir Shaivism is the idea of spanda, jisko main, that was something which was profoundly unraveling to me, because spanda jo hai, when I read a little about it and I try to understand it, it's the vibration, right? It's the vibration that connects all aspects of existence, suggesting that each memory, each symbol resonates beyond its intermediate context. So when I understood this, when I touched upon this kind of insight, I felt, the plates coming together somewhere, because I think that is what I was trying to look at. I was trying to capture spanda, the vibration, right? और वो मुझे कहीं और मिला नहीं, मुझे अपने ही जगह में मिला, मुझे अपने ही धरती में मिला, right? And I have deep reverence. I mean, we all have, but जब इस इसको मैंने समझा, इस this perspective, which kind of I had to read and I understand it better and then try to make connections to what I was trying to seek, is somewhere coming together there. So central to Kashmir Shaivism is this idea of spanda, which is a vibration that connects all aspects of existence, suggesting that each memory, each symbol resonates beyond its intermediate context. So uh, it also opens up the idea of space and time, the flux and the dimensions in between, और वो memory होती है, और vibrations होते हैं, right? So memory I was then encapsulating as vibrations which are there in your subconscious mind, try to make appearance once in a while, and then when you are ready to encounter them, they help you navigate better, I guess. So for us as who are displaced as well, it comes to the rescue. The journey becomes both internal and external, traversing unfamiliar geographies. Even though it's been 34 years and counting, we're still traversing those geographies. We made them home in the unfamiliar geographies, but yet, I mean, I can say for myself, home is back home, Kashmir. So for us who are displaced, the journey becomes both internal and external, traversing unfamiliar geographies. And the internal is a reflection on identity, right? And identity and belonging that engages with continuity of, you can say, spiritual continuity. Despite this rupture, which is our exodus. So this resonated with what I was seeking and what was the notion of home and place, and here was the answer. The concept of home transcends physical space. My PhD journey is about a search for home in exile, and home is the notion which I am trying to look at from different perspectives, different lenses, physical and non-physical lenses. So the concept of home transcends for me in terms of physical space and becomes an experience which is much more, where the essence of home is carried within, rather than anchored to a specific locale. You can also say that it's kind of, it helps you compromise with what happened, with our loss, so to speak, you can say. This philosophy allows to engage with the idea of home not only as a geographical place, right, but as an inner space of consciousness and connection. So I think those vibrations started becoming a little clearer, a little, I mean, I could see them in terms of connection building. And that's where I felt that I think I need to do much more research. And my PhD journey started with this revelation, so to speak. So on memory, because I work a lot on memory and materiality, and memory, as I said, it has dimension which is intangible, but is looked at from the physical aspects of tangibility, um, and with respect to memory, a little bit on what placemaking can say. Because I'm an architect, I look at placemaking as something which is a manifestation of thought. And so my PhD is a search for home in exile, placemaking as an evocative concept. Um, so I try to look at on memory and continuity a lot more as well, where in Tantra Loka, I have just again touched very briefly, but in there it said that memory is a thread in the universal fabric. By it, each being connects past with present, identity with infinity. And this is Abhinav Gupta's perspective on memory. And because Abhinav Gupta also has his works are at par in terms of how Indian philosophies of aesthetics is even looked at. His perspective on memory offers an important lens for understanding exile, at least to me. And memory serves as a bridge that links the displaced, or we can say like this, us with their roots, transforming it into a means for grounding in the universal self. So memory and materiality. So I'm also looking at materiality. I mean, in terms of materiality, I'm looking at objects, but objects that connect back through memory, right? Objects are again only a manifestation of memory. So it takes you back to memory itself, and that's where my core work is also positioned in. I'm also intrigued by what Laled had to speak or had to say in her walks. हम जब छोटे थे तो they used to be around us in like somebody saying some walk in their conversations, or ऐसे कोई formal schooling नहीं हुई हम. I don't think, at least in my generation, कोई formal schooling हुई in terms of Kashmir Shaivism, or even, so to speak, Lalit's works. But they were inbuilt in our cultural fabric, right? They were in there at every moment, with respect to our rituals, with respect to our daily life also. So वो भी आपके जहन में बैठे होते हैं. And again, when you are trying to bring all those memories in front, and you're trying to kind of make sense of them, you're trying to see what they are about, many parts start emerging, right? And they eventually become a whole, but every part has a journey of its own. So one of Lalit's works, which has influenced me a lot in through this journey, is she says, Goram Goran Vonnam Kuni Watsun, Nebre Vonnam Andaratsun. सुई में ललेगा वक्त वाचुन तबे है तुम नंगे नचुन. I know in इसके interpretations बहुत कभी बहुत convoluted भी हुए हैं, but इसकी essence is so profound that it's a it's a it's a conquest, right? It's a thing within yourself, like in terms of आप क्या सीख करना चाहते हो, who are you as a seeker and what are you seeking, right? And then what does your guru say? Your guru can be your own self, like, you know, आप इसकी interpretations बहुत तरह से कर सकते हो, but eventually it talks about your inner self, your own inner core, right? And the answers are then within. Her works have inspired me a lot in terms of navigating this web of tangible, intangible, and it can be an artist's journey sometimes, but there are our own cultural tenets which have helped, or which help you rather stay grounded and stay anchored, right? Um, there's another one which I feel very connected with. Of course, there are many others as well, but um, one of the ones which speak to my work is Akoy Omkar Yusna Bidaire, Koimbe Brahmandas Sungaire, Ak Mantar Yus Zataskaire, Tas Sas Mantar Karikya. To all those who may not understand Kashmiri here in the group and have connected, it is Akoi Omkar Yusna Vidare. It conveys the power of celestial sound, Omkar, and its ability to harmonize the body and soul, leading to self awareness. Lala's, whom we call Al-Jed, her teachings emphasize the transformative practice of prana, right? And the mastery of Omkar over thousands of other mantras. So the verse means in totality is that through the resonance of Omkar from the navel area, it's a very important center of a human body even, right? So through the resonance of Omkar from the navel area and the practice of prana, where the breath, the prana is, that's why you are there, right? Prana, harmony within is attained, leading to self-awareness. What use are thousands of mantras when one masters a single lettered Omkar perfectly? Now, all these are you can say these are enablers for us to seek more, seek better, or seek what is beyond, what is gray, what is not clear to you, but through our own personal journeys, through our own, even though our journeys, at least, I mean, as a community, we have a collective journey, but we also do have our personal journeys, and I draw a lot from these from our own cultural tenets to help understand our own reality better. So Lalzed and Abhinav Gupta have a lot for all of us to go back and see what they have to tell us or they have to offer us. In coming back to our my research and the displacement, and in the continuum of this displacement, our engagement with our with our storytelling, with our rituals, with our mantras or prayers, is a way of keeping our own spiritual and cultural identity intact or alive. It's an act of sometimes the subconscious mind, or at times even the conscious self. These practices serve as acts of placemaking for me, because I'm looking at placemaking that resonate with the understanding of abhas, like manifestation, where memories and rituals are expressions of the self's continuity, despite the rupture, which is displacement as a rupture in our context. Um, in the end, I just want to quote myself from one of my writings through this journey. As I said, my journey is still continuing. This journey has led me to articulate a realm both fluid and bound, like dancing thoughts that stretch, that shift, and reshape, as if in pursuit of an endless horizon. It's a journey towards a destination with no limits. I haven't put any limits because there aren't any limits. A search that continues as the form of thought that itself evolves. This thread of connection, this inner pursuit, sustains our core consciousness, keeping it vibrant and pulsating, even as the physical place of its origin, which is Kashmir, remains elusive, like a mirage, at least at this point of time. This unbroken thread of seeking allows our identity to endure no matter where we find ourselves in the world or in any realm, so to speak. So that were a few of my thoughts on my journey and my philosophy, so to speak. Thank you so much.
Wow.
Wow.
Uh, that's
That's
intense.
different.
Okay, I'm hearing some. Let's see.
There is an echo, Rishi.
Yeah. So maybe I'll have to request Urvashi ji, maybe if you mute for 1 second, I'll pose my question and then you can unmute yourself. Yeah, okay. So as I was listening to you, I mean, you covered a lot of ground, and the first question that comes to my mind is, how do you go from a profession of tangibility, right? Architecture, design, it's as tangible as one can conceive. Like, there is a lot of touching and feeling, and you have sort of traversed from a world of concrete constructs to a world of perceptive constructs, right? You have made a huge transition. Space in architecture is not just a matter of perception, it's actually a physical there is a physical quality to space, which is absence of anything else. That's what we are calling space. And then suddenly you transition to space, which is sort of an ethereal space in which you exist. Similarly, a place, it's kind of that sort of a point of origin that you associate yourself with, and you use the term placemaking. I'm not familiar with it. I don't know how much of our audience is familiar. How did this transition, like, what is it that you were seeking that took you back home and then took you on this profound journey? That connection is not very clear to me. I would love to hear a little more. How do you go from so much tangibility in your life to this intangible, perceptive ideas?
Mm. Yeah, thanks for that question. Yes. So by profession, I'm an architect. I mean, I'm a trained architect, so to speak, who is about bricks and mortar, right? As rightly you mentioned. But within that, if one looks actually at the idea of making place, is when you touch upon the idea of a place, it goes beyond the idea of the bricks and mortar, because bricks and mortar then only give shape to the idea which you had, and hence you're trying to recreate that idea, right? And actually speaking, architecture speaks a lot more about that it's called the mother of all arts. It has everything within it, which is inbuilt, and it's physical manifestation is stones and concrete or mortar, so to speak, but it's about the spatial quality or the dimension, right? So when I was an architecture student, and but when I carried Kashmir with me in terms of my memories, while all that was happening, I entered this, so to speak. We have these third dimension, ke aage wala dimension, which has boundaries but are very fluid boundaries, and that's where I position myself, because I was trying to understand the boundary of the mind, right? And that also is a space, but it transcends into so many different dimensions that it has a boundary, but it doesn't have a boundary. So now I want to understand that through this journey of where my own journey, so to speak. So um, coming to the point of how did I do this transition, I think it was there. The seed of this particular journey, I think, started when I went back, and that dimension started speaking to me. That was the time when I understood that I need to transcend beyond the brick and mortar dimension and understand the other dimension better, to be able to make sense of meaning of things, which was not otherwise apparent to me. Did I answer your question?
Yeah, I think it's very profound. I'm still kind of trying to wrap my head around it.
Grappling with it.
There is clearly, I mean, you also made a connection with the aesthetics,
Mm.
how important they are in Kashmir Shaivism. And, Abhinav Bharti actually talks about the idea of aesthetics being integral to the entire theory of Shaivism and understanding Advaita. So I can maybe briefly make that connection, only like, sparsely make that connection. But I think I understand. You're basically talking about architecture as a way of creating something, and where does that creation come from? And that creation
Yes.
comes from an aesthetic perception before it kind of manifests into a concrete form. And that's what you were seeking. Am I understanding
Rightly.
that correctly?
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
awesome.
Rightly so. Rightly so.
Okay, so there is a question from Rohini ji. She wants to know, how does being rooted influence the individual identity? How one feels about self in general, and the subsequent impact it has on everything that he or she does in life. Okay, do you care to elaborate on that?
I think the idea of rootedness comes from our situation of rootlessness at this point of time, because it's the same thing where I draw a parallel from to the presence of an absence. It's the rootedness which actually takes us back to where our roots are, and we again make sense of this dimension, which is space and time. Even though 34 years and ongoing, we still are going back to our roots in terms of understanding what our roots are really, right? I mean, at least I can talk about myself. And that the idea of rootedness is about the idea of identity. That's very important. That's the core. If you take out place or the language from your core, there's nothing which remains, right? So that is rootedness. So that's why the idea of place is so important. The idea of ground is so important, that uh, आपकी identity otherwise it's scattered. You cannot put together uh, anything unless you have a rooted identity, so a root, so to speak, right? So roots become very important to understand your core identity, and understanding identity is important because that is what shapes you as an individual, isn't it?
I will expand on that question a little more, and I'm probably trying to be a little contrarian to what you just explained. Forgive me for doing that, because I'm trying to wrap my head around. I hope Rohini ji would also, like this extension of her question. What I'm trying to figure out is, like, we have known about these nomadic tribes that were never rooted in one place, right? And we have also seen our mystics, even in Kashmiri history, there have been mystics who haven't necessarily stayed rooted in one place. They have traveled a lot. They have lived in one place, treated that place as their home, and then moved to another place and then treated that place as a home. So, when we look at these examples of what we can consider like a complete antithesis of being rooted, or being rooted as an important aspect of your identity, these illustrations actually kind of give us a counter example which says even they have a spiritual depth and sort of appreciation for life, and other concepts that we read in Kashmir Shaivism. So why does it not matter to them being rooted, and why does it matter so much to us? And why has it had so much influence on our community or on us individually?
Mhm. Rishik ji, are you
Yeah, I was done with my question.
okay?
Yeah.
So uh, it again, I think it this again, the extension of this your question and Rohini ji's question takes me back to Lalred, where she talks about the inner self as being the center sanctorum, right? So she talks about the inner core, the vak, which is Garam Dupnam Andara, Nibri Dupnam Andara. So that also is the root which you are trying to seek from outside is actually within you. तो वो भी एक perspective हो जाता है to understand the idea of roots or rootlessness, right? I feel there is strength in even understanding what is the idea of rootlessness, as you rightly said, because then the idea of rootlessness is also a very profound one in itself, right? It tries to seek in different forms and different ways, but there are counter arguments in both ways. One may say, no, you need to be rooted to be able to understand things, but I think there is essence in both, right? And that is where dual and non-dual kind of forms of understanding realms is also um, it's also a debate, an ongoing debate almost every time, isn't it? So
Right.
both have its, I think, I think in our situation, it becomes a little bit more profound because we are talking about the physical uprooting, so to speak, and regrounding takes time. It takes a long time to be able to say, okay, we have understood, or we have we have kind of owned the ground, right? Even if they are unfamiliar ground. So it's a, I think it's a work in process, and we only know how time unfolds what is for us as a community, even as individuals, so to speak.
We haven't had any more hands raised or questions, so I don't want to kind of hijack the whole time. So anybody, if you have question, please ask away. Otherwise, I'll use this time to ask one more question because we talked about space, we talked about placemaking. I have a question about memory, and you talked about the evocative nature of memory, or evocative nature of the objects on our memory. This is what I'm trying to clarify. When you say evocative, it is the emotional sort of outcome of a recall, right? So
Yes.
memory as a recall, as a tool to recall something, is not necessarily evocative, but what it makes you feel when you recall something, that part
Yes.
is the evocative part of it. So
Exactly.
am I right in understanding that you're basically the research that you're doing, you're trying to establish how this being back in Kashmir evokes those sentiments and emotions which are directly related to the recall of the tangible objects that we experience, or the tangible, environmental factors that we experienced or grew up in, and that's why it is so important to us. Am I getting this right?
Um, yes, in parts, it's right. I mean, because I'm using. I mean, I can't say use. Memory is something which is also becomes the methodology or the tool in research. But having said that, taking out this academic kind of rhetoric from the tool, memory as a tool, memory is very strong and powerful and profound, and it can be, as you said, that memory itself becomes a tool sometimes, or it's an act where objects become the tool, right? So it is evocative when there is an experience, a lived experience, which is it connected to it. And evocative is the emotional coefficient of it. It could be, it depends on the nature of memory, what kind of evocative coefficient it has. But it is a very critical component in understanding displacement, because it is these tools which help you kind of construct the idea of place, an idea of place and space, and then eventually home, the idea of home, a notion of home. That's how I'm looking at memory, in terms of as a construct, and using tools, using objects as tools as well.
Is it possible that, for our seniors who had to leave Kashmir at the prime of their youth or midlife, where they had established so much of, your 40s, 50s are times when you have worked hard and you have accumulated wealth, whatever little, and then you reach a point where you want to enjoy that, and suddenly all of that was taken away. So do you think, if we were to study our community and look at the amount of, um, you know I would say, mental health related issues that we are seeing. I mean, I'm not saying we are seeing it. This is a question. I don't know if it has come up in your research. Do you think we will also see that like a converse of, because there is that absence of those objects that evoke those happy memories, is that maybe somehow also responsible in creating more mental health disorders in that generation of our community that had to leave everything and could never in the last 35 years get back that, the evocative feeling of experiencing that environment or those objects that they had, cherished and sort of preserved for themselves? Do you see, like, my question is there any connection whatsoever, in your research? Have you discovered something like that?
Yes, yes. There is a reason why I'm using objects as memory, or tools rather, because um, um, I read in one of there's a book which we use in it's called House as a Mirror of Self, by Maria Clark. She talks about Gestalt. So Gestalt is a form of manifestation of memory itself. So she talks about Gestalt, and um, because she wants to document the stories of her ancestors who are now, like, at this point where the stories are have to be preserved, or have to be documented. But then how do you evoke that memory? Because um, it's also very critical, and also a very tender point. How do you approach it? How do you, and because you don't want to, there's a sense of trauma, right?
Hmm.
We as a community haven't spoken much about it, but that doesn't mean it's not there, right?
Hmm.
It is there, it's very much there. So uh, you need to, first of all, you need to understand, as a researcher, I can talk about myself as a researcher, what what landscape are you getting into in terms of memory landscape also. Agar aapko uski thodi bahut samajh hai, then you can do a better work there in terms of documentation. And how do you evoke a memory where there it's a very precarious point, because you can make or break it, right? Because you want to bring the you want to you want to document, but at the same time you do not want to um, touch upon the trauma in an adverse way. So आप उसको कैसे अप्रोच करते हो बहुत important भी होता है, because so I use different tools. I use gestalt tools to evoke a sense of memory, but with tenderness, because it shouldn't become a point where you you load your you load people who have experienced already so much with more trauma. It should be a point of catharsis, and that is a very um, it's a very important position of as a researcher. How do you translate that and actually are able to become an enabler where catharsis is possible? Because catharsis is an important, हम as a community हमने ज़्यादा बात नहीं की है उसके बारे में,
Right.
but we must and we need to, because what we have to have something for our future generations to look back, right? So
Yeah.
हमारी stories बहुत important है, सबकी.
So maybe we are approaching last 3 minutes. I haven't seen any more questions, so I'll continue this with one last because it reminded me of a conversation we were having on a WhatsApp group when we talked about the idea that our community probably is living through a PTSD right now.
Mm.
And I think what you were alluding to a moment ago was that being gentle in evoking those memories is necessary, because if you are, as a community and even as individuals, are kind of living through that PTSD, and there is no catharsis because you never got any closure, right? Evoking that memory can be painful to the point of, like, debilitating your day-to-day functioning. So
Mm.
are you suggesting Kashmir Shaivism could
But
actually work as a therapy against that PTSD? Sorry, go ahead.
it could, no, as you were saying that it could, manifest itself into trauma over trauma. But also, if you approach it well, then it's also liberating, because that's what I have encountered in my own interviews with my own research, because I'm researching with the community. So and they know that they are getting into it. They know that this is what is going to happen, because my questions are about all this, right? But I also see a feeling of liberation there, and that's what is catharsis. And I know for some time you're in this moment where you're living it every moment at that point, but I think letting it out as form of stories or any other form, I think it's very important for our community. हमने ज़्यादा काम नहीं किया है इस पे, but करना है. I mean, I think it's very, very critical, very important, because what you're talking about mental health issues now in our generation, who actually took it all, they took the brunt of it all, right?
Right.
Are going through these, and that's a fact. They are, and these are things which we had never encountered in Kashmir. What happened? What changed? Is something which I think it's an introspection we as a community. Yes, and another question is, uske saath aapne Kashmir Shaivism bola. I think there's a lot. If a novice like me could find and drop something from there, I'm sure we have so much to offer. So much.
Awesome. That brings us to the top of the hour, and I want to thank you. You have taken a very profound sort of topic and broken it down into some very understandable concepts. I think I enjoyed the conversation very much. I hope the same for the community and people who are going to watch this offline. We are going to try and collect some feedback and collect some comments. And I wish you all the best with your research. And I
Thank you
hope
so
that
much.
you will come again and share your findings and maybe tell us, how Kashmir Shaivism can become that tool of catharsis for our community.
Definitely. जब भी आप बुलाएंगे, at your service, Rishik ji.
Thank you
Thank
so
you
much.
so much. Thank you so
And
much for
thank you,
having me.
everyone.
And Very humbling. Thank you so much. Thanks.
Thank you
Namaskar.
everyone for joining. Namaskar.